And we're joined by Dr. Lamar Goree, Superintendent of Caddo Schools. Hello, sir.
Hello, Dr. Goree.
Well, good morning. How are you, lovely ladies, this morning?
Just great.
Doing great. Opening of
Good.
schools on
Good.
August 23rd. What's the protocol? What are the big takeaways?
Right, really excited that last night we had an opportunity to roll out our Strong Start 2.0. And again, we rolled out our plan and really with a huge focus on us really doing everything we can do, any type of efforts we can take to ensure that students are in school in person 5 days a week. So the big takeaways were that, we will continue all of the mitigations from the cleaning protocols that we've done in the past. We will continue to keep our static grouping, but also relax that enough so that we make sure that children are having every educational opportunity that we can do safely. We will go to school in mask. That's all adults and students. And again, this is another precaution as we look at some of the things that we're facing with addressing the Delta virus in our community. So really excited to welcome all of our students and staff back in person for a great school year.
There is the virtual learning option available. You're discouraging that, it sounds like, but it is available. How will that be run? What do parents have to do if they want to enroll their student in that?
So we did run a virtual opportunity, and our families have already been identified that wanted to participate in virtual learning. With what will happen is we have that. One thing. Let me say I'm really excited about too is that we will no longer ask our teachers to do what we call synchronous instruction, where you are teaching to virtual kids, maybe via Zoom, while you have live students in the classroom. The only option is that a teacher will teach those children that are in front of them in person. For our virtual learners, we will have specific teachers dedicated only to do those virtual learning models, as well as we have some business partners that we're partnering with to help us support virtual learners. But our hopes is that, and one of the reasons why it's so important that we are very aggressive with our mitigating efforts is so that we can have as many kids in school as possible. A lot of research coming out from the state today around the fact that virtual students did not perform well on state assessments, so much greater drops in performance. So our best effort as a school system is certainly to have students in person 5 days a week in school, and that's
Dr.
our goal.
Goree, so what percentage of students do you think will stay home, will be virtual students? Do you have some ballpark number?
Those numbers are very, very low, Lavette. We're probably looking at about 5%. We started last year at about 20 and probably ended maybe 30% we started last school year and maybe ended around the 10% mark. And what happened with that was that families realized that this is not the best model of instruction for K-12 age students, and certainly it was not best for our teachers. So I do think that those facts, along with us also being aggressive with our mitigation efforts, will provide families with that level of comfort to send their babies back to us.
So, Lamar, would that mean that you would have like one or two virtual teachers for the entire school system, or would you have them per? You won't have them per campus.
I need to hire this girl. She's really smart. You're right. We're going to have a virtual.
Dr. Goree, you know I can't work for you.
We may have one first grade teacher for the whole district. The numbers are so low at some of the grade levels with families who are selecting virtual. And again, I do ask those families, even as they look at possibly letting their children come back, to remember that in our best efforts, those students still regressed more than in-person learners.
Dr. Goree, let me ask you this, because there are a lot of people listening that don't want their kids to have to wear a mask. They don't want it to be about masks again this year. What do you say to them? Is there any way a child can opt out of wearing a mask?
Right, and I pray that they, just like you said, they don't want it to be about masks. I hope that that's truly the attitude that we take and make this not about masks, but make this about how do we create the safest environment for children to be in school 5 days a week. We do not want to have to start having the hybrid conversations, but we have to be aggressive with mitigating factors. And if we're going to welcome back 37,000 students into classrooms with 25 or even 30 students in some situations, we have to take those mitigation efforts. And if not mask, I say then what? I mean, hybrid schedules, we don't want to have to go back to doing things like that. We certainly don't want to be virtual. So until we see the negative declines in our numbers with this virus, it is necessary that we are aggressive in mitigation. So I pray we don't make it about a mask, but about kids being in school.
Let me ask you something that everybody's thinking about, and I know you have, and I'm praying that, it's frightening that we're sending 37,000 kids back to class when we now know kids are getting this virus. What is the procedure for if a child at school A tests positive for COVID? Will the school be closed? Will that class be sent home? What is the protocol with regard to that?
One thing we did roll out last night in our plan were our quarantining guidelines, and again, and I encourage families to go and read those there on our website as well as all of our social media pages. But there is a protocol, and there is the same situation where we look at were you 6 feet apart. We look at the whole exposure, who was exposed, and we then determine who has to be quarantined versus who do not. One thing in the plan that people are excited about, as we've rolled it out, is that based on recommendations from our health authorities, vaccinated people do not have to be quarantined, and that's a big part of the conversation around why we need to get vaccinated. But of course, the bigger part is that we do know that is our best way to stop the spread of this virus or to control that too. So we have a procedure and a protocol that's in place, and every situation is very uniquely different here. And so there's a process in place where we will do what's called contact tracing. After that's done, we will determine who has to be quarantined. We have a process where you can be released from quarantine by a negative test between day 5 and 7, or do the time schedule where you run the full 10 days. So all of those protocols are outlined in our in our Strong Start procedures.
I know you're concerned too, because for under 12, there's no vaccine at this point. Are you hopeful that is on the horizon? As we start this new school year, that's a big concern for a lot of folks too.
Right, and I think when you think about superintendents making decisions around things, and even our leaders making decisions around things like masks, certainly a lot of the time was around that 5 to 11-year-old. Certainly something that kept me up at night because they're defenseless. They've not had an opportunity to have the vaccine. So, in some ways, to send them to school without the vaccine does make you nervous. So I do think the mask too is an effective way of at least helping to control the spread. The doctors last night did an amazing job of really explaining and giving wonderful examples like themselves, who work with COVID patients every day very closely but have not contracted the virus, and they contribute that to the mask. Are there going to be issues with wearing it correctly? Absolutely. But are we doing everything we can to stop the spread? I feel confident that our plan does that. So I really pray that our community does get behind us so that we can focus on our students being educationally prepared more so than making this about a mask.
Dr. Lamar Goree, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Okay, my friends. You ladies be well.
Take care.